goofies, and I can't find it because I can't figure out how to spell Kulu. How do you spell that?
I don't know. K something.
K-O, K-O-L, Kulu. We are live. Welcome to our September live event. My name is Dave Solberg. I'm the managing editor of the RV Repair Club. I just got back from the Charlotte show, and we had a pretty decent turnout for a fall show. It was our very first one. I did get to see a lot of people that were members of the RV Repair Club there. They came up and came to the seminars and said hello afterwards, so that was a lot of fun. Heading to Pomona, California, actually Fontana this year. There's an RVIA California show that has been in Pomona the last 25 years, moving 10 miles to the east to the Auto Speedway, where there's free parking and a lot more room, actual physical buildings. We can have bathrooms that have walls, not porta potties. So if anybody's out in the Los Angeles area, East LA area, one of the biggest shows, the biggest on the West Coast. It's running right now, probably about the second biggest show in the country behind Hershey, Pennsylvania. And we'll have 1,500 units there, seminars, all kinds of fun stuff. So if you're in California, definitely stop by and see us and come to the show. O'Reilly Auto Parts is selling discount tickets too, by the way, if you want to get into that. So we have, that was Sam, put up another question. Do you have any? Don't forget to submit in the chat box. We are right now in the middle of editing the air conditioning, not the class, we did the class earlier, but the air conditioning segments that we did. And Steve and I were going through a variety of edits, and one of the things that kind of came up is how the airflow goes back and forth. And we see we've got an air conditioner back here behind me, and we were kind of interested in the way the system draws air up into the air return, pulls the moisture out, brings a flash point, but then when it comes back, does the air go out the back end of the air conditioner or in to flash the evaporator coils, or condenser coils, excuse me. And so it was kind of interesting. We looked on the internet, we saw a lot of diagrams, and actually finally ran a system, and it does pull it in from the outside on these, and we see a lot of diagrams showing the opposite way on the internet. So not everything you read on the internet is correct. Everything I put on is correct. So, just kidding. So Sylvester just said, hi Dave. Hi Sylvester. How you doing? What kind of RV do you have? I'm wondering. And you had any questions on it? Getting to the fall, so we got some beautiful fall trips that people are taking. I know that out in Charlotte, people were looking forward to doing some of the winery stuff with a lot of harvest festivals that are going on. And then fall foliage colors in the mountains along the Mississippi. So Sylvester says, I pull my RV out about every 10 weeks for a road trip. Should I disconnect the battery while it's sitting in storage? That's a very good question. It's one of the big problems with RV batteries in the industry is that we're not conditioning them properly. If you don't have access to electricity, you should pull that battery out, because just letting it sit like that, depending on how cold it gets, but that cold weather is just going to keep, that battery will keep diminishing, and you'll end up getting sulfation. The best thing to do is to pull that out, bring it into your garage or someplace that you can hook it to a charging system or a conditioning system. My recommendation would be the battery minder, because it doesn't actually gas the stuff, so in your garage you wouldn't have that happening. You can get battery minder at Northern Tools. It does send high impact waves into that battery. If you do have access to electricity, you still need a multi-stage charger in your rig to be able to do the steps it takes to break up that sulfation. As you drain your battery down of electricity, of storage, sulfur attacks the plates, and the thicker that gets, the less that battery is able to store. That's all it's doing, it's storing electricity. And so you have something that you go out in the boondocking with, and you don't even get a day out of it. Even though it shows 12.6 volts fully charged, it just, boom, it doesn't have that storage capacity. So your typical converter, like this one, is in a distribution center, And you have a series of circuit breakers here that are for the 120 volt. One breaker goes over to here, which is our converter. And what this does is it charges our batteries. So it isn't on all the time. Your batteries are going to drop down to 10.6 volts from 12.6 down to 10.6. And that's called a cycle. That's called a deep cycle. So it doesn't just keep a constant charge like your engine battery would through the alternator. So what this will do is it senses when it's 10.6 volts, it'll kick in and it'll charge that battery up to 12.6, but that doesn't break up the sulfation. You need a multi-stage battery charger like the Charge Wizard. If you have a solar panel with a control module in it that also does that multi-stage, check that out and see. So I probably just blew the audio out on this. But if you have a storage facility and you're storing your battery, you can also do the battery reminder with a solar panel if you have access to open site to the sun, and that'll charge it as well. Not very expensive, but it's a great thing to have. So good question. All right, I have a 2004 Damon Ultra Sport C7 diesel that is heating up when climbing hills. Okay, and one of the things that I always tell people when they're trying to troubleshoot, when they're looking for information from a technician or anybody like that, get some really hard evidence. When you say it's heating up, what's the temperature? Get one of these temperature infrared guns like this, and what is normal operating temperature versus what you're seeing as heating up. If it's the actual engine temperature by the temperature gauge, then you're going to need to take it in and find out exactly what's happening with a diesel. It could be that you have some blockage in your antifreeze and your coolant that's in there. It's not getting all the way through. You might need to have that flushed. It could also be a turbo and the ceramic ring. If those start to get a little weak, they're going to get really hot. So if it's engine temperature, you need to identify those things, probably get it in and get it checked. If it's ambient temperature inside, find out what is normal, what is it operating at. When you're climbing hills, you're definitely going to be taxing that engine a lot heavier, so it is going to work hotter. And it could be the exhaust manifolds that are bringing some heat up there. You might need to put some extra heat shield. And I'm not sure, you said it was a 2004 Damon Ultra Sport C7 diesel, so I'm pretty sure that is a Class A, and if that's the case, diesel's in the back, so you might even have an airflow or a filter issue. So take a look at those things. What is the quickest and easiest way to clean the water holding tank when it is sat for a while? There's a couple different methods. The freshwater tank is plastic, and so what happens a lot of times is people fill up at a campground or a site with hard water, because the campgrounds are not going to have soft water. So if that sits for a while, hard water has a tendency to kind of get a little slimy, a little scaly. There's some microbes in it, so it is a good idea to clean that out periodically. Thetford makes a freshwater tank sanitizer and deodorizer, so you can get the smell out, but you also can sanitize it. You can do a cup of bleach, depending on the size of your water system, your freshwater tank. If you've got a 50-gallon tank, I'd say if you put a couple cups of water in and fill that thing up and just let it sit overnight and then dump it out. If you don't like the smell of bleach, they do make the scented bleach. My wife hates the smell of bleach, so we use the scented kind, and it's not quite as offensive. But the Thetford one now that's just come out here, probably in the last year, is a great one to use. And just pour the bottle down, fill the tank up, let it sit overnight, go dump it. Okay, what is the quickest and easiest? We have just purchased a 2018 Cougar Light fifth wheel. Congratulations. It has a Lippert self-leveling system. We're getting an error code, LF jack error. All wiring seems to be okay. What else do we look for? So that would be the left front jack error. and it should give you a code. It should tell you something that's happening with that jack system. And sometimes those have to go in and be reset. Check your owner's manual. There is a process that you can go in and basically kind of gives you a level setting of where all the jacks are at, and there's a procedure that you have to go through just to reset that component. And since it's an 18, it's fairly new. That might even be under warranty still. So if it is under warranty, I would definitely call your dealership, call Lippert or whoever, and get it documented. Because if you have problems in the future when it gets out of warranty, you want that documented that it started now, and that if you do have problems and it's a continual problem, it'll take care of it. But I would start by resetting those, checking your manual, see if you can get an error code that's in there. Most of those self-leveling, and you didn't say whether it is hydraulic or electric, and I would imagine with a fifth wheel it's probably a hydraulic system. So I would check to make sure the fluid level is correct. Then I would check to make sure I don't have any leaks on that jack system, and then check that error code. It could be that the seal in there is not allowing that jack to pressurize when it's pushing it up. So those are the things that I would check. Let's see. And that looks like the last of the questions for now. So thank you for coming. No, I'm just kidding. And just go, what? No, we're not done yet. So what fall is coming here. We're getting a lot of people that are starting to think about putting their unit away for the season. Let's talk just a little bit about winterizing. There are a couple different options that you can do. One is to put RV antifreeze in through the entire system. I personally like to blow all of the water out of the lines. So if you're going to do RV antifreeze and you don't have a winterizing kit, one of the things I would recommend is to make your own winterizing kit. And what you're going to do is you're basically going to bypass your water pump. Is going to pull from your water tank, and so where that tank comes to your water pump, like this here, you want to put in line somewhere a diversion valve. So instead of this going back to your water tank and drawing water through the pump, you're going to have a valve here that turns the valve, and then another hose, and it's usually going to be a smaller hose similar to this one here, maybe a little bit bigger size so it doesn't take you forever. But what that does is that when I'm in line like this, instead of pulling here, when I turn this, I just put that hose into an antifreeze jug, and when I turn on my pump, it's going to draw antifreeze instead of water. So I'm going to be able to just put antifreeze into my whole system. If I don't have that winterizing kit, then I'm going to have to put antifreeze into the freshwater tank and pull it in that way. And that sometimes takes an awful lot of antifreeze to put in there. Easy thing to get. This I got at a home improvement store. This is a PEX line. This is a PEX compression fitting. You simply slip it on and it will hold 40 psi. They also have Sealand, Watts, and Ace Hardware carries Shark Bite. So those are very inexpensive, easy to install. So if I wanted to use RV antifreeze, then I would simply turn that on, run it through. Don't forget your shower in your toilet. Don't forget an exterior shower. If you have a ice maker in your refrigerator, you definitely want to take the filter out of that, turn the bypass. I typically don't run RV antifreeze up through the ice maker. I will just turn the water off, take the filter out, turn the water off, diverter, and then just run the ice maker about 2 or 3 cycles, and that gets everything, all the water out of there. The other option then is to use compressed air, and I just built this, oops, wrong one. I built this little tool here, and this happens to be an old hose that I was going to throw away. Cut the end off, put a worm clamp with an air chuck on the end of this. I hook it up to a compressor hose, dial it down to about 40. I don't want 120 running through the system. I hook this into my city water fill, and so now I have pressurized water or pressurized air that I can go and turn this on. I go to the farthest faucet, open it up, blows all my air out till I get, or water out till I get air coming through. Shut that and just keep working my way back around to all the systems. And again, don't forget the toilet, don't forget the spray nozzles. The only thing I have to do with that is when I'm using the city water fill, I bypass my pump here. So I would still have some water in this water pump. So I need to just turn on the water pump switch, let that drain out. Back up just a little bit. Before I do this, I want to dump all the water out of my freshwater tank, my dump tanks. I want to take the water plug, or the drain plug, out of the water heater, especially if I'm doing a 6-gallon, or if I'm doing the antifreeze. I want to bypass that water heater. You should have a valve that allows you to bypass it so I don't have to put 6 gallons of antifreeze into that water heater. So easy little thing to make. Just went to O'Reilly Auto Parts and got these two components here. And make sure you dial your compressor down. You don't want 120 PSI going through that. Okay, so we got a couple more questions here. I have a 2013 Jayco RKS25 with an Oracle refrigerator. The green light blinks. I keep the unit level. It keeps food cold. Oop, jumped on me. Freezer keeps food frozen. I read it may be the motherboard. Should I be concerned, and how much trouble is it to change it if necessary? I work out of it about half the year. Currently camped in Wisconsin. So I don't think, I know the green light shouldn't be blinking. It's got to be a code that's telling us something is happening. And since it's working, though, it might be a code that your battery is starting to get a little on the weak side. Because even if you're plugged into 120 volt power, like through the distribution center, or you're running it off of LP, it still needs 12 volt battery power. And again, as that unit, that battery gets down below 11, it's not going to kick the distribution center on or converter on until it gets down to 10.5 about. So it might be an indicator that the battery is getting a low. A green light, though, it usually would be something like red. So I would recommend looking at the troubleshooting on your owner's manual and finding out exactly what that blink is. Most of the time, it'll do it in series. So you get like 4 blinks, and that tells you what the code error code is giving. So I'll do a little bit more research on that. And it was a 2013, and if it is the eyebrow board or the motherboard, now there's two different things. The eyebrow board is the one up at the top. If you're getting a blinking on the motherboard, and what you're calling motherboard is the black module on the back side of that, then that's a pretty easy replacement. Just a series of a couple plugins with that. And if it's blinking there, then again, that's usually going to be a code telling me something. So identify where is it blinking at. I'll do a little bit more research on it. Hopefully next month we'll post this back up and have an answer. But I also recommend maybe post this question on the Facebook or social media sites, and we've got a series of technicians too they're going in and answering all those. They'll have a little better opportunity to dig into that and find out what it is. But if it's cooling, it doesn't seem to be anything that's real serious. Jump up. One of my leveling jacks are leaking back into the reservoir. Is there a way to fix that? So if you've got the leveling jacks leaking, I'm assuming that's hydraulic fluid. It's leaking back into the reservoir, and what that tells us is that the seal is not tightening in it. If it's an HWH system, they recommend spraying a little WD-40 in there and wiping it off. That helps lubricate the shaft, and it might do something with that seal for that jack itself. Lippert, LCI does not recommend that at all. You've got Power Gear, they also do not recommend that. It basically is probably replacing the seal. It's just not holding that fluid in at the pressure. I think there's usually like 2 pounds per square inch when it's in the extended position or retracted position, and if that seal starts to weaken up, it's going to allow it to flow back through, or the check valve. And that's probably more important. There's a check valve with a seal in that, not on the actual leg itself. So I misspoke. The check valve. I'm human. Let's see. If you have a solar panel mounted on a trailer roof powering the batteries, should you take the batteries out and take them inside for storage and charge once in a while? If I park the trailer inside a non-heated garage where the solar panels won't get sunshine, should I take the batteries out and store them inside? It depends on the kind of solar panel you have. If your solar panel has a multi-stage charger control unit with it, then you don't have to do anything with it. Just leave it out in the storage. It'll determine the charge of the batteries, and it will do that multi-stage charge and keep them conditioned and keep them topped off. You don't want to let them drain down. If you're going to park it into a shed, now if you don't have the multi-stage, yeah, take them in, put a battery minded on it, Charge Wizard, something that has that multi-stage charge or conditioning or sulfation charge. If you're going to be parked inside of a building, then if you don't have access non-heated garage where the solar panels won't get sunshine, so I'm assuming that you don't have electricity there available either, so then I would take those batteries out, put them on some kind of a multi-stage charger. You'll extend the life of your batteries by 200 cycles. That means 2 or 3 years by just doing a little bit of conditioning with them. Okay. Our 8-year-old Winnebago sat for a while prior to my purchase. The water smells horrendous. Other than pouring sanitizer into the hose and using water to force it in, how do you recommend sanitizing it? This is very similar to the other question we had on the freshwater tank. Again, keep in mind you're using hard water in those tanks, and as they sit, that's got calcium and lime and rust and minerals and sometimes a little bit of bacteria, and that starts to get really slimy. Have you ever seen hard water sitting in a pot outside? All of a sudden it turns almost black, and what you're starting to get is some of the, we call them the bugs in there, and they, just like in sewage, the good bugs, the anaerobic bugs, are going to eat the sewage and digest it, and it doesn't smell as bad. You're getting more of an anaerobic type of a digestion in some of those microorganisms that are in there, and so that kind of gives you that rotten egg smell. So the first thing I would do is I would dump everything out of there. If you don't mind the smell of bleach, I would put in a bleach concentration, probably go a little more than 2 cups for what you're doing, and just put it in there and just run it through everything. Run it through your shower, your drain, down the drains, toilets, all that kind of stuff, and just make sure that you flush that stuff really good. I'd put some more in then and let it sit overnight, maybe 2 days, and then I'd run the Thetford sanitizer and deodorizer through it. And you should be able to get that smell out of there. I've had some units that sat for an awfully long time that were pretty smelly. 8 years is a long time, so I'm sure you got mold, mildew. The bleach will take care of all that stuff. So I would try that stuff other than replacing it. What's the best way to keep my freshwater and waste tanks from freezing when camping in the wintertime? I'm the same guy in Wisconsin. Well, this is it's ironic that you said this. I do a seminar and I ask them who's going to camp in the wintertime, and I get a couple people kind of like that. I say, well, it's a trick question. Who's going to camp in the winter where it's warm? So the best way to keep them from freezing is to camp in the wintertime in Florida, but you're not doing that. You're up in Wisconsin. Well, keep in mind, most of your holding tanks are going to be below floor level, not heated, and you can just put RV antifreeze in those. I don't worry too much about the holding tanks. As long as I get some good antifreeze down in there, get them down, put it in first, so they're down close to the valves. I'm not going to have anything that freezes in that area. And I've camped in 20 below zero weather with these things and never had a problem. I've camped, or I shouldn't say never, and not had a problem, but I've also camped in certain situations I didn't get prepared for and froze the lines up. There are heat blankets that you can buy, heat pads, auxiliary. If you have access to 120 volt power, those just go underneath the freshwater tanks. So the biggest thing I'm looking for is where are my freshwater lines these things, my pump, this, and how well are they protected. I remember when I was in owner relations at Winnebago, we had a super chief, and I had people calling up, left and right saying, well, I froze my water tanks and my water lines, and I'm at only 20 degree weather, and these things are advertised that they're heated for year-round use. Well, they had one heat duct that came into the basement, and because there was no cold air return, we got these pockets. And this thing was sitting right by the outside door, and I got a good wind coming through at 20 degrees. It doesn't take much to freeze these up. So what we were suggesting to people do is just get a small little auxiliary heater. Get one of those little ceramic heaters, or if you can get a catalytic heater that has the propane thing, and just supplement that heat where these things are at underneath there, and you should be able to winter in these things quite a bit. I know a guy that I got to know for years, Ron Knutson, used to be the editor of one of the RV magazines up in Seattle, Washington area, and he would camp in the mountains in the wintertime in a Class C, and he would put one of those little heaters in and never have a problem. So make sure you get these things heated. This is the key. Hi, thank you for your time. Well, you're welcome. Thanks for joining me. Blew out my GFCI with the AC while running on a Honda 2000 generator. Replaced the GFCI and the green light is lit on the GFCI outlet, but it won't restart. And the green light is lit. Okay. So you blew out the GFCI outlet. Okay, this is a little confusing because your air conditioner is going to run like in this model here. I think here's our main. So we're going to have an air conditioner that's on one circuit, our outlets on another circuit, which would mean our GFCI is on that. And so I'm not sure how you can blow the GFCI outlet when the air conditioner is hooked directly to the distribution center. So even when you're running your Honda generator, then that's just like plugging into a shoreline power. Unless, I'm just trying to replace the GFCI. Blew out my GFCI while with the air conditioner running. So if you blew out the GFCI on the generator itself, that's one thing. That's where you would be plugging in your cord. But even with a 2000, you should be at 30 amps because that roof air conditioner is going to run 14 amps. So the first thing I would do is that even if the green light is on, but nothing will reset or restart, then I would get in and just do a multimeter test. And I don't have a multimeter here with me exactly. This isn't going to work. This is a neat little tool to have. It's a non-contact voltage tester, and you just put it up to wherever you have electrical cord, and it'll register. The only problem with this is that when I get by a GFCI outlet, there's enough stray voltage coming off it. It's going to show me voltage both sides, even if there's not. So I would go in and I would take a multimeter and I would just test that on one side of the GFCI you got power coming in, 120 volts. On the other side of it you got power into the GFCIs in there, and just make sure everything's wired up, because the green light doesn't always mean it's working properly or that GFCI is working. That basically, when something like that's not working in there, you gotta go in and test voltage. So if you can give me a little more information on it, is the GFCI on the generator, or is it a separate one inside? If that's the case, then it shouldn't have anything to do with the AC. We got something else going on. Okay, so that's the last of the questions so far up to this point. So let's get back to getting your rig ready for the fall or the winter storage items. One of the things I think is a great idea to do, I get this question often, is should I do a cover or not if I'm going to put it onto an outside? And I'm a big fan of the covers. a lot of times they'll help keep some of the critters out if you get the good cover that goes up underneath. The biggest thing though is that cover will keep the sun from fading the decals, from fading the sidewall, from weather checking the tires, and it's just a lot easier to keep that unit looking good. Probably one of the biggest things in resale value in an RV is how it looks. You can have a thing that's absolutely pristine, but if it's faded and those decals are cracked, you're going to lose about 25% just because of how it looks. So the more you can protect it, the better. About sun hitting that outside, and then again keeping the snow and everything off it. There are some really good covers out in the market. There's a lot of people who kind of jumped into it. My favorite is ADCO, ADCO, and a couple weeks ago we had somebody with a question about it. We went in and looked at a customized version of a 32 foot, I think it was, and the price was like $450. Very inexpensive, well worth the time. You're going to pay a lot more for that than that for tires doing it. So, okay, he came back with the GFCI. Sorry, I meant that I blew the GFCI when I went to plug in a fan. Okay, the GFCI in my camper, it won't reset. And, okay, so if you I would say we probably have something going on. If you replace the outlet itself, so, and I've had this happen quite a few times. Unfortunately, we have local here. We have Surf Ballroom, and every February we have a big celebration for the music and the life of Buddy Holly and Richie Valens. And they always bring RVs out there and plug them in for the bands as a green room, and even though they plug into electricity, they don't have 30 amp, 50 amp stuff. They're running low. Then they go and plug in a whole bunch of ceramic heaters, all the stuff, and it seems like every year they blow up an outlet and they can't figure out why it's not working. It looks like it works, and you go in and they actually test the outlet with a multimeter. Sure enough, it's not working. Something internally in that GFCI outlet has, basically created an open, and I don't. I wish I could phone a friend and call Steve right now, because Steve is my electrician, and he would be the one to tell me, well, your neutral's not doing whatever it is, but so I would say get in there. If you did replace that outlet, it's very possible you put it in with the wiring bad in it. So you need to actually test the wiring with a multimeter. You're going to have 3 wires. You're going to have a ground, a neutral, and a hot, and you should have nothing between the ground and the neutral, and you should have 120 between the ground and the hot, and the neutral and the hot, but nothing between the ground and the neutral. So if you can test those just to make sure you don't have a problem, but it's very possible that outlet is bad, and replace it. If you've done any kind of minor repair work, electrical, it's a fairly easy thing. Make sure you shut all the power off to the system, but then you need to make sure that you get it wired up correctly. So that's what I would check. Live in Canada, and this year need to store it outside. Have a rubber roof on my motorhome. Should I tarp it? I believe yes. We talked just a little bit about that beforehand, but the first thing I would do is I would go clean it and condition it. And you can clean it with Dawn dish soap. The blue soap is the best stuff out there. It does the best job with tars and bugs and poop and all that kind of stuff, but yet it's most environmentally friendly, and it will not hurt your rubber membrane. And then find out what conditioner you need. If it's EPDM or TPO, they have a conditioner that they want you to put on it. Then I would tarp it, because one of the things I didn't mention about tarping that in the wintertime is that you also protect the seals. You've got a lot of sealant up on the top of that unit where the roof meets the front cap, where the sidewalls meet, around your air conditioner, your vents. All that stuff has a certain type of sealant on there, and putting a cover over the top of it just keeps the sun from baking on it, and it also keeps the wind and the moisture. One of the worst things that happens in an RV is with temperature changes. You get sometime where it starts to rain a little bit, and maybe the rain starts to seep into some of the seams, and then when it freezes, it it expands, and so you can really do some damage. So in my opinion, the tarp, and I wouldn't even go with the tarp. Problem with those is that if you try to just do a regular square big massive tarp, it's not customized for it, then you'll eventually start ripping corners off, and then it'll start to flap really bad, and it could beat up the sidewall of that RV pretty drastically. So get it covered. ADCO. I have a 75 model Prowler, and I think it's 24 foot. Would you have any idea of the weight and what kind of tires would you recommend, and do you think it's heavy enough to need the trailer brakes? I'm a big fan of trailer brakes and just about anything that's out there. I would say your 24 footer is going to, I would be guessing in 75. The problem with 1975 model years back that far is there was very, very little weight education. They were just making them, and it didn't really hit until about the mid 80s to late 80s, where people were starting to have tires blowing out and axle issues, all kinds of problems, that they started going, well, wait a minute, these axles can only hold so much weight. These tires can only hold so much weight. So what you need to do is that you should have a data plate on the tongue of that trailer that will tell you GVWR, gross vehicle weight rating. That's the maximum that vehicle can weigh without going over the weight ratings for the axles, for the tires, for the brakes, bearings, everything. Go weigh your coach. Best way to find that out then is take it to a CAT scale for $10. I can put it on there and I can find that it's 3,000 pounds, 3,500, 4,000, whatever it is. Find that GVWR on the tongue of your vehicle, and then you should be able to adjust accordingly. As far as the tires, I would say you want to stick with a good name brand tire from a dealership that's familiar with RVs. Most of your trailers right now are using a Goodyear Marathon, or there's a Transformer tire that's out. We actually put the Transformer on our trailers that we have here. I've got a side business. We do a pressure washer, and I have 3 guys in trucks and trailers. Trailers weigh about 6,000 to 9,000 pounds, and we put over 100,000 miles a year on those trucks and trailers. So I get some really hard data back from those things, and I tell you what, those Transformer tires have been outstanding. We get the Load Range D on them, and they got a great sidewall. I don't see a lot of weather checking in them, and the tread seems to wear very, very well. And we put a lot of road miles on, but we also go into parking lots before we put them in fast food restaurants and convenience stores, fuel stations. So we're going to a lot of places that they have not got a parking lot yet. So there's a lot of really rough terrain going through. So I get some great information on tires. I get great information on tire pressure monitors. That's another thing I would recommend. TST is one of the best ones that's out there. I have a set on a trailer right now that has almost 150,000 miles, and it's still running true. So you probably won't put that much on a travel trailer unless you travel all over the country and you don't look at anything ever. Don't stop. So those are the things I would do. And trailer brakes, that one thing, there are several states that require auxiliary brakes on a trailer for any weight. Some of them, like Iowa, you have to have auxiliary brakes over 3,500 pounds. Some of them are 2,500. I personally think they're a good thing to have on that trailer. Anytime you get over anything about 1,500 pounds, to me, it's a good safety factor. Okay, what is the best way to store RV batteries in cold climate? That seems to be a really popular one here tonight. So lead acid batteries, you do not want to let them freeze, get cold. They will drain out and they'll start to sulfate and coat the plates. The best thing to do is if you have access to electricity where you're plugging or you're storing your RV, you need a multi-stage charger. Something like a Charge Wizard. I keep going back to Battery Minder. It's a great one. If you don't have access to electricity but you have an open area to sun, get the Battery Minder with the solar panel charge. It'll extend the life of your batteries by 200 cycles. That's 2 to 3 years well, pays for itself many times over. Otherwise, take them out and bring them into a garage or a facility that you can put a conditioner, desulfation, multi-stage charger on those. That's the best thing to do with those batteries. Whether they're lead acid or even AGMs are going to get a little bit of sulfation out of it. You do not want to let them freeze. Where's the best place to learn more about late model motorhomes? We currently purchased our first motorhome, 2018 Tiffin 40 IH, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can. But I'm a star accountant, not a mechanically inclined individual. Where do I find the late model all electric motorhome for dummies book? There are a lot of books out there. One of the best books I think ever written was the RV Maintenance Manual by Bob Livingston. He wrote that probably somewhere in the late 80s or early 90s, maybe even later than that. Gary Bunzer has written several books. I wrote the RV Handbook, 4th edition. There was 3 of them prior to that. They're hard to find. They were out in print for about 10,000 copies and then sold, but I see them on eBay, I see them on Amazon every once in a while in various different places. Personally, I think this site is one of the best sources of information. We've got over 200 videos now, and some of the stuff. One of the things I'm kind of questioning here is you want information on late model all electric motorhome for dummies book, but you have a 2018 Tiffin Peyton, so you don't have a late model unit. But there's a lot of things that transcend the years. Norcold refrigerators, Dometic refrigerators, air conditioners, the electrical system. They've been pretty much the same concept for many, many, many years. And we've done a lot of videos on a 1992 Itasca Sun Cruiser. We did the 2014 Raptor toy hauler. We've done some older model stuff, 96 Monaco. But if you want a good book, Bob Livingston's book that he's put out, check out the shop with some of the classes we've got in here and the website, and we're continually adding to that. So there's some good stuff out there. Joe asked, just bought a used motorhome looking to deep clean the interior of the RV, sinks, countertops, etc. What products would be best for RV cleaning? There's a variety of different products out there. The first thing I would do is I would get somebody like ServPro or those type of cleaning companies to come in and do the curtains, the sofa, the carpets, all that kind of stuff, and just do a good steam clean of all the fabric portions of that unit. If you can take them out, sometimes you can. If you take the curtains and get them dry cleaned somewhere, you can take the cushions out, just unzip and pull the foam out. To get them back in, wrap the foam with some of the plastic that you get from a dry cleaners or a garbage bag, and just take a vacuum and suck all the air out, and then you could put them back in, pull the plastic out. You want a lighter plastic, not a heavy duty garbage bag. And then I just do a bleach solution. I run 2, 3, 4 cups of bleach in the 50 gallons or 75 gallons of water tank, and then just run it through everything. Run it through the toilet, through the showers, drain, sink. Bleach will be, that diluted bleach solution will help disinfect and clean the entire water system, fresh water, black water, gray water, and then run some of the Thetford product, the sanitizer and the deodorizer through that. As far as the rest of the compartment, or the rest of the inside of the RV, you've got wallpaper, the countertops, depending on if they're Formica or Corian or a solid surface system. I still think the bleach solution in the sinks is good to do. Another thing I would do is take all the aerators out of the faucets, because you've got the small little screen aerators in there, and keep in mind, every time you're running campground water through that, it's hard water. So you got calcium and rust and lime that can all clog up those things. You can run some CLR through that, or vinegar, And sometimes it's a matter of replacing those screens in there or the aerator that's on the inside of it. Let me just see what else we got. Then the rest of the stuff inside, it kind of depends on, like flooring. If you got carpet flooring, you steam clean the floor. If you got wood flooring, you got to make sure you got some type of a good wood cleaner like Murphy soap. I would do all the cabinets, woods, anything in that aspect, even the Formica and stuff in the kitchen areas with Murphy's oil soap. You put, I don't know, it's 2-3 tablespoons in a gallon of warm water, and that stuff really does a nice job of cleaning and conditioning any of the wood that's in there. And then the other thing I think is probably more important than cleaning the inside. Let's see, I just bought a motorhome looking to deep clean the interior. I would then get in and start making sure that all the gaskets, all the sealants inside and out are in good condition. Get up on the roof and make sure that that's cleaned out very well, or inspected very well, because you've got a self-leveling lap seal that's going to go up there, and if you have cracks, anything in there, you want to look for leaks. Open the inside compartments, roof to sidewall. Do I see any stains or wrinkling in those areas? That's probably just as important or more, in my opinion, to find those gremlins before they start doing some damage inside your RV and create some major repairs later. Okay. I saw, okay, one of them came up, will you ever get set up to accept PayPal or join the club? And when it first started, I thought it said, will you ever shut up to accept? So I guess, but, and that's something that we have heard in the past. That is the company that moderates this. I know I will send that off to them. I'm the managing editor, and I don't get involved in any of the charges or the pays or anything. I just want to get you guys content and help answer questions and make sure that you enjoy your RV experience. And but I'm sure that's something that they will consider and see what it takes to get into that. But it's a good idea. Everybody seems to be paying with PayPal. It's very secure, so hopefully something like that will come about. And where are we at here? We've got a few minutes left. And so let's get back to a couple things that we've had. I guess when we were talking earlier about the what do you use to deep clean, what do you use to get it ready with, and one of the things that I've been very impressed with lately is Protectol, and I've known this company for years and years and years. I used to deal with Ken Newman, who was the president of Protectol, and then it was sold recently here to Dometic, and was it Dometic or Thetford? Thetford. Anyway, but this product is the Protectol. It's the all-surface clean care. It polishes, it waxes, it treats, and it protects. It's one of the few things that I found on the market that has a UV protection built into it. That's a big thing with your sidewalls, is that when you have that exterior sun hitting that and you go to wax it, if it doesn't have a UV protection in the wax, then it's worthless. One of the biggest manufacturers of exterior wax fiberglass is Crane, who is also Chemlite and Crane Composites, and they recommend the McGuire's wax with Carnauba that has a UV protection. But this is one of the best things. You don't want to wax decals because it captures them and they need to breathe. So this stuff has UV protection built into it. It's one of the few things that you definitely can put on tires. You can put it on the seals and the decals. And this is something that I typically, when I store my vehicle, I'm going to take it before I put it away. I'm going to actually just go clean it really well, check all the sealants before, the roof seals, all that stuff, and then hit any seals, like I have slide room seals, or I've got the rubber gaskets for the compartment doors, the door, that kind of stuff. Just spray a little bit of this on, wipe it on, so those stay nice and pliable. They don't stick, they don't get brittle, crack, whatever. So good thing to use to get your unit ready to go. What is your opinion of the NSA Ready Brake Tow Supplemental Brake System? And I'm not familiar with that version of it. You know, I spent an enormous amount of time from 1983 to 15 years at Winnebago, and we didn't do any trailers, so we didn't have any of the supplemental brakes. And this one, I'm not sure if the NSA Ready Brake Tow Supplemental Brake System, is it for trailers or is it for motorhomes? If it's for motorhomes, which I'm kind of reading into that it is, I've done a lot of research on Roadmaster and on Blue Ox. Both of them have an outstanding supplemental brake. You know, in the past it used to be that you had to mount this big arm and drill holes in the bottom of your floorboard of your car and put this onto the braking system, and now they have just a box that sits on the floor, and it has its own battery built into it, and it does still push a dead brake. That's the whole thing about these things, is just that a lot of people don't realize that when you don't have the car running and that brake booster with the hydraulic fluid pushing it, you don't have a full brake on that car, but you don't really need it. What you're looking for is you're looking for something that'll slow that car down, not stop the car, not stop the motorhome, but slow it down. And both the Blue Ox and the Roadmaster have outstanding brake systems. It has a gyro, so it doesn't do all on, which means if you do a light brake with your motorhome, it'll skid the tires if you do an all-on brake. Let's see if I got somebody. But he didn't say. But I'm assuming that is a supplemental brake for a towed vehicle, something behind the car, because most of the braking systems for trailers are incorporated into the axle when you get that. So, I'm a big fan of those. There are a lot of states that anything over 1,500 pounds being towed behind it has to have supplemental brakes, and so by law you have to have them. I'll do a little bit of research on the NSA, and we'll see if we can't put those in one of our content videos as well, and find out a little more information on it. What would you recommend for going over and sealing an older roof? I think it's aluminum. The challenge with aluminum is that you're going to get a lot of oxidation out of it, a lot of black streakings as it starts to fade, and actually it's breaking down is what it's doing. So I would first recommend cleaning it very well, and then and look at Dicor. Dicor has several products on the market, DICOR. They have several products for different materials of those, and one of the things that they do offer that a lot of people are doing on the aluminum is that they have a reconditioning process where it's a coating that goes over the existing roof, and you just apply it with a roller, a paint roller, and it's white or beige, and it's just kind of I don't know if it's a rubberized product, but it really helps seal and condition and basically recondition an older deteriorating roof, and aluminum's going to do that. So if it is aluminum, you probably have a seam right down the center of it that because it came in 4-foot sections of it. That's very important to get that seam sealed properly, and then take a look at that Dicor product. I think it's well worth the money. It's aluminum. Okay. So we don't have any more questions yet, and we were just talking about what I had before that. Oop, here comes something. Nope, the roof. But I guess one more thing that I was talking about the sealants and this stuff here. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that between your air conditioner, the shroud, the bottom of the air conditioner, and the roof, you have a foam gasket that's in there that goes all the way around the square just on the outside of the opening, and that needs to be checked once a year as well. There's spring-loaded bolts that have a certain torque that hold that, and that foam is going to have a tendency to start to compress a little bit. And so every fall when I put my RV away, I just go inside, pull the interior intake down, and I see those 4 bolts, and I just hand tighten them. I don't even have to do a specific torque rating. We did a video here about 6 months ago. There was a gentleman that had a 26-foot Jayco, and he said he had a little bit of a roof leak. And when we pulled the roof air conditioner off, he was wrong. He didn't have a little bit of a roof leak. He had a massive roof leak, and that whole gasket had deteriorated, and he let it set in the wintertime, and snow built up, and then it melted, and it just kept kind of sinking on him. So now he has a pool in there, and it would just stay in and completely wicked the inside, and the entire roof of that unit is ruined, and basically the RV is totaled. It'll cost about $10,000 to put a new roof on. The unit's worth about $5,000. So he was not a very happy camper, was not covered by insurance, and so it was a very hard lesson. It is in your air conditioning owner's manual to do that. It's not typically in the RV owner's manual. And that's one thing you'll find that's very typical in RVs, is that you're going to have different sets of owner's manuals. You'll have the main one for the RV that the RV company brings out, but it's just going to go into generic stuff that deals with what they've done and how certain things work in the water system and so forth. Then you will have a folder or a binder full of what we call OEM, or original equipment manufacturer owner's manuals. So your Norcold refrigerator, your air conditioning unit, all the stuff that company buys from other companies, those operations and maintenance items are going to be in those owner's manuals, and you'll definitely need to take some time to go through those as well, just so you understand that, even because it doesn't say it in the main one, doesn't mean you don't have to do it. There's some things that, if you take some time to understand these, and that's kind of the basis of this whole program, is to give you those checklists, to give you those maintenance items to help reduce those problems later on down the road. It's not a, sometimes people say, oh, it's so overwhelming, there's so much to do. But you think about it, when you built your house, or you remodeled, or you bought a house and you moved into it, you spent all your lifetime learning what to do at your house, what to do with your car. And a lot of people jump into an RV and say, oh, I got to do all this stuff, and it's just a matter of taking a little bit of time to become acquainted to it. And it's not that big of a deal if you just take it in chunks and understand that these are the things I need to do in the spring. These are things I need to do in the fall, and then I won't have problems. I won't have surprises, and I won't have major repairs. You mentioned decals and not to wax. What do you think is the best for cleaning decals? Best thing, in my opinion, for cleaning decals is, again, Dawn dish soap. Get back to the very mild. I think Murphy's oil soap is recommended by some of them as well. 3M makes the majority of the tape that's used, but there's different companies then that cut and do all the stuff. You got Sharpline and Venture and various ones out there. But I would clean it with Dawn dish soap, just a little bit in a bucket of warm water like you would do the dishes. Condition it with this stuff here. Again, it's UV protection. It's not going to create a hard wax that cakes those things. So those are the things that I would use. How do you care for decals? So we got a couple minutes left. Got the same question. That's the same one there. I think we got everything set up. So just a couple more things in here. I guess going back to this one, we showed this a couple times. One of the things that I do in the seminars when I talk to people about traveling down the road is, this is a very, very good product to have. It's called a infrared thermometer. And when I originally took over this company that I'm working with, Easy Wash, we were having a lot of problems with tires and axles and bearings out in the road, burning up and tire blowouts. And so I make my guys, every time they stop, they take this and they go out and record. Let's get it on Fahrenheit. And you'll see that if I hit this back area here, I am at 71.3.6 degrees. And so what I have them do is I hit the hub, the brake drum, and the tire and record it. So if it's 75 degrees outside, let's say like today, it's not uncommon for those temperatures in there to be up in the 90, 95, maybe even 100 on a blacktop, running down the road. But when it spikes to 120, 130, that's telling me that those axles, those bearings are getting dry. They need to be repacked. That's telling me the brakes might be set up too high. That's telling me that the tires might be losing some inflation. Just by knowing what's going on in that wheel assembly, I can completely eliminate my failures on the road, which I've done. Now, I'm not saying you eliminate them, but you'll greatly reduce them. It's a lot cheaper to repack wheel bearings in a shop somewhere where it's convenient to do rather than on the side of the road. And so I'm getting the wrap-up sign, but Harbor Freight, Home Depot, a lot of places carry those. We got, do you have a winter, spring, summer, and fall checklist for maintenance? We are putting it together on the site. We do have some, winterizing checklist to put in what to do, bring your rig out in the spring. Those are on the site. And then how to repair clear coating that at some area started to peel off an RV. And that one's a tough one. The clear coating is usually a diamond shield, and you pretty much have to go in with a 3M rubber grinder. It's called. It's just a rubberized deal that will get all the loose stuff off of there and then go in it and recoat it. So I guess we're running over now. We have to wrap up. One last question. We have 2018 Columbus 40-foot. A week ago, the middle of our floor bowed up and the two slide outs were dipping down according to a leveler. We are at least 4 inches higher. A Coke can would roll down both sides of the kitchen. Then there was no reason. The floor went back down when we were leaking water under. Wow. Okay. I tell you what, guest 6186, do me a favor. This is a question that cannot be answered quickly. You have some major problems with the leveling on a 40-foot trailer. Post that on our website, on our Facebook site. Join us next month. I will write this down, do a little bit of research on it. It really seems to me like there's some kind of a leveling issue with what you've got going on with your slide outs dipping, and you've got some major structural issues in here. So I apologize that we can't spend more time on it, but it's something that really is going to take a lot more time to discuss. So with that, I would definitely get in touch with, if 2018, you've got to get to a dealership. You've got to have them start on it, because that needs to be documented. That should be covered under a structural warranty. Most of them have a 336 on those. So anyway, with that, I appreciate everybody coming out. We're running over. I'm going to be in Fontana, California next week. Starting Friday is the first day of the show. It's a 10-day show. If anybody's out in that area, go to O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your discount ticket. I think $15 tickets are $10. Free parking, and we have seminars all week long. Every RV that you could possibly imagine out there. So join us out there, and thank you for coming, and have fun this fall with your RVs. Appreciate it. We need like closing music. That's a little Johnny Carson for you.